Alafia, Hotep, Kamusta. Welcome to the Mind of Ro page. I am Obajaguna, Rain Hadas Kavedas. I am the Queen of Skulls. So today I'm going to talk about the sex war. What I mean by that, I'm sure you realize all kinds of stuff has been going viral with videos of men hating women and women hating men. So let's get into it. The last video I made was on religious abuse, also known as spiritual abuse. So if you feel like you've ever been abused and want to heal from that or get a little more information about that, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. I also have a TikTok and Instagram and a Twitter at Mind of Ro, and I also have a Facebook business page at The Mind of Ro. And I also do readings. I am a psychic, so if you would like to get a reading done, please contact me in Messenger at my Facebook page or either on my Instagram. Thank you, because I don't really respond to emails that much. So before we get really into it, let's talk about the history first. So the sex war didn't just pop up out of nowhere recently. It feels like it's kind of a new thing, but it's not. So the major sex revolution actually happened between the 60s and 70s, which was when the rise of contraception, the pill, porn, premarital sex, and abortion was on the rise. So before we really get into it, let me remind you that contraception and birth control pills right now is making a revenue of will be making about $45 billion by 2033. So let's keep that in mind when it comes to what's popular and what's going on, because let's also think about the puppet master from behind, that when these giant revolutions happen, obviously newspapers, magazines, TV, marketers, people are gonna feed off it somehow, some way. And so I'm mentioning this to let you know how much it's worth, so you could kind of like pay attention to that, to know that, to not get so caught up on revolutions and think nobody's getting something out of it, because this is a multi-billion-dollar industry going on, the sex war. Know who's pulling the strings and know who's making a whole lot of money off of it. That's why I'm mentioning that. Just pin that somewhere in the back of your head and keep that in mind, okay? So the question is, was the pill a license to be promiscuous? Before I get really more into this, in the 1950s, it was actually very common and very normalized for domestic violence. So what happened was, because a lot of it, even though like rights were given to women way before that, clearly, obviously, according to America, just because we get rights or anybody gets rights, it takes a really long time for the rest of America to catch up, if you know what I'm saying. Because they did that whole thing with slavery as well, set the slaves free, but yet still treat them like crap. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about that. So yes, women had their rights prior to that, but women were still being treated badly, obviously. We watched movies and seen things about the 1950s, and it was a little more normalized for women to be owned by their husband, to not have a job, to stay home while the man went out to work. And a lot of men around that time were taking advantage of it. A lot of men were beating up their wives, cheating on them. Pretty much got to the point where a lot of wives couldn't really do anything about it. They couldn't escape anywhere because they didn't have a job. They had no experience of working anywhere. They didn't have anything under their name. I mean, yes, they did have rights to be able to at that time, but a lot of women didn't at that time. A majority of it was, you know, the husband went to work full time, the woman stayed home, took care of the kids, took care of the home. Back when we could actually afford to have a family in a home with one parent working, those were the days. But back then, men did take advantage of that. Men took advantage, and there was a very high percentage of men beating their wives up and not getting in trouble by the law, and also cheating on their wives. So there was a sex revolution around that time, and it got really, really big in the 60s and 70s, where the women around that time basically said they had enough. They said, I don't want to be beat up by my husband. I want to be able to drive. I want to be able to have my own rights, and I want to be able to have fair pay. And basically, I want to be able to get a divorce and still be and still be seen as worth something. Because back then, if you were married and then let's say your husband beat you and cheated on you, if you left, society would kind of look down at you on a woman and be like, oh, well, she's already been married and has a kid with somebody, so she's not worth anything. And sadly to say, people still are so corrupt in the mind to still think that way today, which is really messed up because you don't know the situation of that woman, you know? So it became an issue. So what happened when there was a rise of women? They got really upset about it. They're like, yeah, well, if men can sleep around on us and shit on us, we should be able to do the same thing. So then we had the sex revolution where we had women being in porn. It started being normalized. And then the pill came out where women were able to sleep just as if the men were sleeping around and not have to carry the baby and have to take care and basically sleep with as many people as you want and not have no repercussion due to it, you know? So women at this time called it like a revolution or, you know, some kind of power move. And as a woman myself, I'm going to ask you this question. Do you honestly think that if somebody, let's say for example, somebody beat you and cheats on you, do you actually think that's a power move to say, well, I'm going to go cheat on people and I'm going to sleep with whoever I want because of what you did to me? I mean, can we honestly really think about that? I understand that that's wrong. The men should not have been taking advantage of the situation and treating women that way. I get it. But was it honestly okay for women to rise up and act like that's a power move to say, I want to be able to sleep around with anybody I want because my husband does it? To me, that's called a trauma response. So was the revolution actually a power move or was it a trauma response? What porn star do you see that has actually healed and enlightened in her power? Honestly. I mean, if you see a woman as a stripper and pornography and stuff like that, majority of the time it's because she's traumatized. She was abused, sexually abused. I'm not saying all. Majority of the time you see somebody in pornography or in the sex trade as a stripper, it's because she's doing it to find some false idea of empowerment when it's really not, because she's traumatized. She could have been raped, she could have been abused by somebody she loves, abused by her own father. Whatever the situation is, it's a trauma response. It's not a power move. And I know I'm sure some people might get mad at me for saying this, but I mean, we got to be real about it, because if you weren't traumatized, would you honestly be fighting to want to sleep around with a bunch of people? If you weren't traumatized, would you be trying to be a stripper, for example, and trying to make money off men and tricking men? Honestly, think about that. Now, I'm not like some square bear. I'm saying this to be honest and be real. If you're triggered by this, I honestly don't care. I'm not here to tell you what you need to hear and what you want to hear. I'm telling you the truth. Okay, because this is love. Sometimes people need to hear what they need to hear. Okay, I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. We need to own up to our trauma and own up to the response to our trauma. It's not okay for men to beat us up and cheat on us. It's also not okay to use that trauma as an excuse to continue to hurt ourselves and call it a power move when it's not. So can we really pay attention to this and understand, like, just because everybody else is doing it in society, it doesn't make it the norm. And know, to remember that there's always somebody behind the scenes who's pulling the strings and playing puppet master, and they're making billions and billions of money off of you being traumatized, off of you following along with the crowd and calling your trauma a power move when it's not. Because when we're healed and when we're happy and when we're not identifying with our pain, our life doesn't consist of us sleeping around with a bunch of different people. That's called an addiction. There's a such thing as a sex addiction. There's a such thing as STDs, as in sexually transmitted demons, that if you continue the problem, you're going to end up being more traumatized and more traumatized and more traumatized, because now you're identifying sex with trauma. And every single time you have sex with somebody that you're emotionally unattached to, you're causing more trauma within yourself. So that being said, I'm saying this not to offend women, but I'm saying this to, like, if you want to tap into your power, can you really think about what that really means? You know, and not use trauma a trauma response and call it powerful. Because there's just this thing as, so I made plenty of videos and mentioned multiple times that I lived in the streets since I was 15 years old. I've been out there in the game. I've been there. I get it. You know, I'm not square. I'm not like somebody who was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. So I'm not saying this from a like mightier than thou concept. Like, I get it. I've been there. I've been beat up. I've been there. Okay. I used to be a waitress at a stripper club. I get it. I know people who were prostitutes. So I've known pimps. So for those of you who are watching this, please know that I've been there in the past. So I get it. So I'm saying this so you know that I'm not saying this from some innocent square bird point of view. We need to own up to our own trauma and heal from it and take the time to do it. And I'm not saying it's okay for men to have treated us that way, because it's not okay. Because it is the man's job to protect us. But when a man does not protect us, it doesn't give us the right place to try to mimic your abuser. So what happens is that when you're abused by somebody, if you've been sexually abused, if you've been physically abused, it's very common for people to mimic their abuser and copy what their abuser behaves like to give you some kind of false sense of empowerment when that's really not what it is. So can we actually be real about it when it comes to the sex revolution, when it comes to women wanting to have sexual rights, to be able to sleep with as many people as they want so they can be promiscuous? And I personally, that's not a power move to me. Personally, that's like, you're traumatized and now you want to sleep around with a bunch of people. You know? And I understand this, well, my body, I'm going to do what I want. Your body is your body. You can do what you want. You could also smoke crack and do heroin and swallow rocks too. It doesn't mean you should. You said this whole, it's my body, I could do what I want with it. It's a cop out. If you can't keep saying that, what you're doing to your body does count. Just because you have the freedom to do what you want, it doesn't make it right. You have the freedom to eat fried chicken every single day and have a heart attack. You have the freedom to do that. It doesn't make it right. Okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Is since we want to have rights as women, what we need to be tapping into is healing ourselves and doing better for ourselves and finding our happiness. And identifying with trauma and responding with a trauma response is not empowerment. And women need to take accountability for that. And women need to see it for what it is. And so I want to touch base on the trauma response. So the opposite sex can be held accountable for it. I'm not saying we do it to point blame. What I want to make this video about is people to take accountability for themselves. And not always point blame. Yes, men should not have done that. But us as women should not have responded in that way. So domestic violence, according to statistics, 1 of 3 women have been raped, physically hurt, and are stalked by an intimate partner. In 2014, 2,997 women have been murdered by their own intimate partner. That being said men are out here messing this up. And cheating, being promiscuous, men normalize sleeping around with women. Men are normalizing, I'm too cute, or I'm too cool to try to be all cute with a woman, or like it's like some kind of like bad thing to be all cute with your woman or something like that, and then go hang out with the boys. Could we talk about where that came from? Let's talk about hip hop, okay? Let's talk about the influence of the rise of hip hop. If you want to get real deep with it, I'm not going to get too much. We could even talk about the FBI putting crack in the streets. We could start there somewhere, but we're not going to get into that. But what I'm saying is, let's throw a little bit in there. Let's talk about the history of hip hop and what it has done to the family unit, where they've had plenty of videos of women shaking their booty in these videos. And then what it does is subconsciously teaches men to sexualize women, and then teaches women to be normalized into what is called hoe culture. Hoe culture. It is, because that's what it is. Okay? And then saying that, oh, it's just the way it is nowadays. Who's making money off that? Okay, what happens if women are acting like this and men are acting this way? Not only did hip hop put men in the streets to start selling drugs in the streets and putting men in jail to separate the family, but now women has become emotionally numb, which takes their need to nourish not only others but their self, which is the opposite of healing, to not be able to nourish yourself because you're constantly emotionally numb from being beat up by men, from being cheated on by men, that we numb ourselves, shaking ass in front of like the camera on TikTok and Instagram videos, Facebook and stuff like that, and finding some kind of empowerment in it. And then we wonder why we don't have a family unit anymore. Now I wonder why somebody would not want families to be together. I wonder why we can't afford for only one parent in the household to work anymore. I wonder who's making money off of this. I wonder who's the puppet masters behind all of it, who is making this happen. Let's talk about who owns the media. Who owns the media on TV? Who owns the internet media? The most popular stuff that you're watching all the time. Who owns the magazines? Who's owning all this? Who is really controlling all of this? And then trying to hide all the real facts about not only history, but enlightenment and healing. Can we really pay attention to what's happening here and stop getting sucked into the media and normalizing it and then blaming the opposite sex and not taking accountability? Can we take accountability that men in the United States are killing women in high numbers, beating women? Women are scared in America. Majority of women, and it's like men don't understand. Men don't have to worry about walking down the street being scared something's gonna happen to them. We are as women. Women can't just walk down a dark valley and just be like, okay. You know? And that's what's the issue. That's the issue, is women have to protect our life, our livelihood, our actual life. We have to fight to stay alive as a woman. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen in other countries. I'm just sure other countries worse than us in the U.S. But women are getting beat up, raped, murdered, and stalked by the own person that's supposed to love them, and constantly causing trauma. So men's job is to protect women. I have been in a domestic violence situation before where there's plenty of men that'll hear somebody getting abused and won't do anything about it because it's not his problem. And I'm asking, what is that doing to the community? What is that doing in the world, in the United States, honestly? And I feel like nobody's really taking accountability for it. That everybody is victim, everybody's pointing the finger, and nobody's taking that accountability to own up to their part in this. And I think everybody needs to point at themselves and say, hey, maybe I need to change. You know, maybe I shouldn't normalize sleeping around, hookup culture. Maybe I shouldn't be normalizing it. Maybe I shouldn't be sitting here watching all these sexual videos all the time and then wonder why I have no respect for women. You know, maybe because I've been abused as a woman, instead of constantly blaming men, maybe I should take the accountability to heal myself and heal my own trauma, instead of reacting in a negative way, like sleeping around with a bunch of people or doing a bunch of drugs or drinking alcohol. Maybe we all need to take accountability for the way we are responding and reacting to a situation that's happening in our life. We all need to take accountability. I have noticed this thing. So like a while back when I was single, I joined this dating, it was like a dating group on Facebook. And so I was just kind of like a fly on the wall and kind of like studying the way people were interacting with each other. You know something I realized? Majority of the people on these dating sites were just about hookup culture. No love, nothing serious. And we wonder why there's issues, you know? And we can't blame everybody else. Like if you're participating in the whole hookup culture, then like, can you really complain and be like, why can't I find love? Like if you're participating with it and you're normalizing it and you're okaying it, then can you really say anything about it, honestly? I mean, marriages don't last anymore. Relationships don't last anymore because it's all about hookup culture. And it's really sad to say that when I was in that site, obviously I didn't meet anybody on there. I was just like a fly on the wall watching people's posts. And sadly to say, I've seen a whole lot of people calling out players in there, calling people out and saying, I've seen this person with this person's lying, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like how did we get to this point where it's like a bunch of hamsters just crawling all over each other, you know? And it gets to the point where like, we have to own up that it's gross. Like I don't be like, well, you shouldn't judge. I'm going to judge because it's gross. You know, to like have a bunch of partners sleeping around and hookup culture, calling it normal, and then blaming the opposite sex. You're the issue. When it's like you're the issue, you know. Men and women need to take accountability for it and stop pointing the finger all the time. Men don't need to be beating women up and cheating and sleeping around all the time and then blaming women. I mean, honestly, if you're a man and you act like that, what kind of woman you think you're going to attract? You're honestly just doing it yourself, and you're continuing the cycle to deal with women who don't take you serious. And then women, if you get hurt and you're dealing with it and you start acting toxic, who do you think you're going to keep attracting into your life? The person who's going to rationalize your trauma response. A person who's going to be okay with you acting with your trauma response instead of you actually taking the time to heal, you know? And I think we all honestly need to take accountability for that. So what happens in hookup culture? Guess who's making a whole lot of money off hookup culture? Abortions. So let's talk about statistics and abortions. Abortion, according to statistics in America, the majority are unmarried in their 20s, and majority of them are women of color. You want to talk about the agenda of racism in America? We know what America was built off of, racism. So the question is abortions normalized for a good cause? Honestly, is it really here to save you? Or is it here to really cover up another agenda or something else that's going on? Who would want majority of babies of color dead? Who? Let's go back again and think about the puppet master from behind. So can we take accountability for participating and normalizing things where people are making billions and billions of dollars off you following the crowd and normalizing it and calling it empowerment? When the elite are in the background laughing at everybody in society, they're laughing at everybody. They're making billions. They're making billions off of all of you having a broken family. They're making billions off your dead babies. They're making billions off of broken families, off of whole culture, off of hip hop. And we can't even afford living in a home with just one parent working. We can't afford why? Who's getting the money? Who's raising the prices? And we normalize this and we think it's okay and we participate in it. As society, we're participating in it. And we're calling it the norm. And then we complain every day and be like, oh, why is it like this? But okay, if you don't like the way it's going, can we actually look within ourselves and ask ourselves, like, are we participating in it? You know? If you look around and you see all this stuff happening and you see something really being normalized, can we take accountability to look into it, find out where it came from and why, and who's making money off of it? Because it ain't you. You ain't making money off of it. You're spending money on it and calling it empowerment. And for those of you who don't know that America is based off racism, you need to do your homework, for real. Do your homework. And it sucks because, like, whenever I try to talk to somebody about this sex work going on, the most common trauma response I get is from women is, well, I just want to be independent. And from men is, oh, I don't want to take care of no ungrateful bee, blah, blah, blah. So men don't want to take care of women no more because he's resentful and traumatized. Women are hiding behind independence because she's traumatized. So I'm going to ask you this one question, women first. If you knew the man you're with wasn't going to beat you, and wasn't going to cheat on you, and wasn't going to wouldn't hold his money over your head, would you still be fighting so hard to be an independent single woman? Honestly. Nobody wants to be alone, working hard all the time. Men don't even want to be working hard all the time. We only do it because we have to do it. not because we want to do it. So can we take accountability? I mean, if you want to work hard, honestly, like who would want to work hard? Nobody wants to work hard. We work hard because we have to work hard. We have to, because we're enforced to. But if you didn't have to, would you be really striving and fighting to be a single, hardworking woman? No, you wouldn't. That's a trauma response. Trauma response. Men, I don't want to take care of no ungrateful woman. If you had a whole bunch of money and you knew the woman wasn't going to cheat on you and she wasn't a gold digger, she wasn't using you, would you still respond that way? If you found a woman who actually loved you, took care of your kids, took care and caressed you every time you came home and treated you like a really good man, and you had the money to be able to take care of her and the kids on your own, would you still be saying that? Would you still be saying, I don't want to take care of no woman, that all these women ain't nothing, they ain't got no money? Would you still be saying that? If society can still afford a home with one parent working and still be able to afford a whole entire family, a family of three kids, one wife, off one income, would you still be saying that? Or are you only saying that because you're conditioned by society and the system to say that? Think about that. Your identity, majority of people's identity is based off trauma. Majority of the things people fight for is based off trauma and pain and resentment. Because you're scared that if you actually tap into what you actually truly, really want, you might get hurt again. But it doesn't mean that doesn't give you the space and right to deny what you actually really want. That's actually why I practice African traditional religion and why I work with Orishas. So I don't have to worry about that. They handle that kind of stuff for me. If you're interested in getting some work done for you so you could clear up the energy in your life, so you don't have to worry about somebody being a gold digger, you have to worry about a man beating on you or cheating on you, and you want to actually live the life that you actually want and not what you're conditioned to want out of trauma and pain, then come talk to me. I'm not saying everybody has to have sexuals, I'm just using it as an example, is that survival mode isn't who you are. Who the elite are conditioning everybody to be isn't who you are. So can we really evaluate our trauma responses in our life and how we really feel about the opposite sex? Is that really based off how you really feel? Or is it only the way you feel about the opposite sex? Is it really what you really want and how you really feel? Or is it because you're just traumatized and you're in pain, and because the media has convinced you that men ain't shit and women ain't shit and women are just a bunch of gold diggers and men are this and this and that and they ain't shit, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, you gotta really think about what you're identifying with. Because I'm so tired of the whole sex war thing, and I always have to touch base. I always have to throw in. A lot of times when I see people doing that, I always have to throw in, yeah, the elite would love it if everybody would be okay with a broken family. They're making a lot of money off of it, a whole lot of money off of it. And then people these days want to demonize the traditional family. Are you demonizing the traditional family and calling it, oh, it's conditioned to want a traditional family? Or are you only conditioned by the media to say that it's old school to be like that, and it's new school, everybody to be single and alone all the time? Where did you get that idea? Honestly. And people are normalizing this, and they think oh, this is a new thing, this is a new age. Is it a new age? Or obviously it is a new age, or is it just everybody's being brainwashed into this? Who doesn't want loved ones? Who doesn't want a family? Who doesn't want to come home to somebody kissing on them and loving them? Honestly, think about it. What kind of person does not want to be surrounded by people that love them and appreciate them and treat them good? What kind of person does not want to be hugged and kissed and loved? A traumatized, broken person does. That's it. Nobody who's been taking the time to heal and deal with their crap is gonna say they don't want to be loved. Only people who don't want to be loved are people who are traumatized and broken. So can we really evaluate the normalizing these behaviors? You want to be single and alone all the time? Do you want to be single and alone all the time? Or is it you only saying because you're traumatized and you're broken and you're fearful and you need to deal with that? And that's why I make a lot of videos on dealing with that. I mean, I made a video recently about how I had to deal with that, and I had to reevaluate my thoughts, you know? And all this stuff is normalized, and we have to really reevaluate what is normal. Just because something's normal and everybody else does it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it moralistic. You know, if it doesn't align with your morals and values, if it's not considered being an actually healed, happy, whole person, then maybe reevaluate and think about what normal really is. And if it's okay for you to be normal. Whatever society considers normal. So that's all I have. I mean, I'm sure I could go into this a lot more. I really try not to trigger people. I'm sure like some people might get mad, but I'm like, you know what, whatever. If you want to get mad about this, I don't, maybe you just ain't ready to heal. Not my problem. I don't care. You know, I care enough to share this video to try to wake people up and just like, you know, so everybody could realize where this came from. You know, it's not like it just happened recently. This has been happening for years. Can we like, you know, I just want to just let people know, like, when it comes to fads, please just educate yourself and know where it's coming from and know who's pulling the strings in the background, who's the puppet masters and who's normalizing things. And stop identifying with it and take accountability. To honestly take accountability if you're normalizing behavior and you're not even doing your homework and asking yourself, where is this coming from? Who's making money off of it? And why are they doing it? I mean, stop following around other traumatized people. You know, we need to take accountability, stop acting like sheeple, honestly. If it offends you, good, then stop being a sheep. You know, like, go your own routes. Let's dance to the beat of our own drum. You know, somebody has to change the way. Somebody has to start it. So just keep it in mind that if you don't have a family, you don't have a loving family unit, then you have no unity. So the best way to break up unity in a country is to break up the family. The best way to break up the family is to take the king down in the family. First you take the king down, and then you take the queen down, and then you get into the kids' heads. What you do is you take the man, you put him in the street, you put him in jail, and if that ain't enough for him, you could feminize the man as well, take him away from the woman. And then what you do is you make the woman hate the man. You take the woman out of the group. You take the woman out of the equation. And then when they're both powerless and separated, then what do? You use the media to influence the children. Not only do now you're controlling the mind of the king, you're controlling the mind of the queen, and now you're controlling the mind of the children. Keep that in mind. And if you're participating, you need to take ownership of it. Take accountability, you know. So my next video is going to be on red flags of an abuser, because I was just talking about abuse. And it's not just women being abused, men get abused too. So when it comes to sexism, I want to make that very clear that obviously men are bigger than women. Take accountability, guys. Any man doesn't want to take accountability that men are bigger than women, you're an abuser. Red flag, right there, boom. Number two, any woman who says a man can't be abused, red flag, right there, boom, because men can be abused by women too. So don't be high and mighty if you're a woman and think you can't abuse nobody, because you can. So I'm going to make my next video on red flags of an abuser. So when you first meet somebody, you could pick up the signs right away so you don't get caught up with somebody that's not worth it in the long run. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. Namaste. Odabo. Peace.